Good morning, everyone. Welcome to an all-new Artsbeat TV and radio from Westfield Community Programming, 89.5 FM WSKB, and our media partners at Agawam Media and Southwick Community Television. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach, and today we are starting our program at Shakespeare and Company, where there is a new play called The Islanders by Carrie Krim. And it's directed by Regge, who is here today to talk about that. His work is quite well known at Shakespeare and Company. He is a multiple Berkshire Theatre Critics Award winner. He's won several Berkeys. I think the one that I recall seeing the most recently was Top Dog, Underdog. But, sir, it's a pleasure to see you this morning.
Yeah, pleasure to see you, too. Thanks for having me on.
So, did you bring this play to Shakespeare and Company, or did they approach you and say, we'd like to have you direct it?
Well, Carrie Krim and I, we kind of go back now. Morning After Grace was the first play that I directed of hers here at Shakespeare and Company, and that was about, maybe 6-7 years ago we did that production. So since that time, Carrie and I have stayed in touch, and we've done readings of not only this play we're about to do, The Islanders, but another play of Carrie's called Never Not Once. So there's been this constant sort of connection between the two of us. So when she finished Islanders, I shared it with Shakespeare and Company and sort of began to lobby for it. So we're really happy it finally has come to fruition in this season.
Tell us a little bit about the play.
The Islanders is about, what's a good word I could say? It's sort of about that starting over that we do sometimes later in life. You know, we've had our life, we've done things with our career, but maybe sometimes we want to take a moment and just get out of it all and go someplace else and try something new, try to rediscover who we are. And so that's what The Islanders is about. It's about two people who have sort of left the world kind of unplugged, going off the grid to this small island in northern Michigan. And what they discover about each other and, of course, themselves is quite, an incredible revelation. And so they have sort of find this way that one can start again in life, and life doesn't sort of end, when your career stops or something like that, there's still plenty of life to be out there to be lived. And we watch them sort of discover that over the course of the evening.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people I've talked to that are in their 50s and 60s have said, all right, I've got another chapter to do, and it's not what I've been doing. And they switch gears or try something new. And it seems to be more and more common. People are not really ready or willing to just want to retire and give everything up. There's always a new adventure.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's very much what's happening here. Both of these people are, they're a little protective about their independence now and all the rest of that. But there is a longing that they have, and that I think we all have, for companionship, for skinship. And ultimately, we have to figure out how we satisfy that longing.
When you were approached to do the play, and you and the playwright know each other, has it had readings and workshops before? And were you involved in those, or did you get involved when the play was more ready for a big production?
No. I mean, Carrie shared with me the very first draft of this many years ago, and she's had readings of it, at other theaters and other places. Though, I was always saying, I want to be first. I want to be first. When you actually get ready to do this, let's do the world premiere at Shakespeare and Company. And so, we're happy that has come about now. And so once we got the nod, we were going to do it. Carrie's done a couple of more revisions of the play, and today is rehearsal day one. So she's arriving momentarily. We're going to do our first read through, and I'm sure even after this first read, because it's a brand new play, there's going to be stuff we're going to begin to tweak and adjust over the next few days.
You've been involved with Shakespeare and Company for a long time, and it used to be that Shakespeare and Company did primarily Shakespeare, and then they added in some other classic works, and now it's got a very vibrant schedule of new works going on.
Yeah.
How has that changed for you as a director?
Well, that's something I've always done in my career. I mean, when I was living in New York City, that's all I did were new works. When a new play would be written, I had a whole group of playwrights I worked with. And so I was always presenting new work. I didn't actually get to do sort of works from the canon of theater until I started working in the regional circuit, and then actually had a chance to do a production of Raisin in the Sun or an August Wilson play. I even did a production of Little Women, and it's which, you never know you're going to have a chance to do, when you first start doing this thing and you're in New York. But it was fun to be out there and do some works that I didn't think I'd ever get to do professionally. But again, I started as a director of new plays always. Yeah.
What got you into theater at the beginning?
I was lucky enough to go to a high school back in Westchester County, just about 26 miles north of New York City. That was a very arts-driven high school. We had a lot of people who were former graduates of performing arts in New York City who came in as art teachers and music teachers and drama teachers. And they infused my high school with lots of performance, so and we all got affected by it in some way. So that's where the theater bug, kind of bit me. And I was part of the drama club, and I had a band back then playing music. And matter of fact, incarnations later of all these bands that have come out of my high school is a band that became a recording band called the Atlantic Star on A&M Records. And so it's an area that who knew at the time that's full of creativity and full of excitement. And my particular takeaway was theater.
And did you start with acting or direct? Were you a director at the very beginning?
No. I did acting in the very, very beginning in high school. And but when I left high school, that was my last play. It was a play that I wrote and directed with a partner there. And then when I went off to college, yeah, in the beginning, you're just being an actor. But I think the directing thing, really got in my blood during the college years because we were doing, again, a lot of theater and, again, a lot of new plays. And I just wanted to, try my hand at it as a director. And that kind of stuck more than being the actor.
Now that Shakespeare and Company nurtures a lot of new works, how much rehearsal time do they give you to put up a production that's never been seen before?
Well, we don't get much more time than something that has been seen before. What's good, again, in this case with Carrie and myself, is that we have this long-term relationship. So with each draft of the show, we've had discussions and we've done our creative work, which helps when you're walking into rehearsal finally, because you and the playwright have a relationship, you have a communication. It makes revising much easier. Sometimes you don't have that. I mean, you'll get a new script, the playwright will maybe show up, maybe not show up, and you have to work the words on your own. But it's not like some theaters which are sort of devoted to new work and they build into the schedule almost kind of development time. Shakespeare and Company is not like that. Most theaters aren't like that. So again, like I say, you have to come prepared to play, and that's what I do.
How many people are in this play?
It's a two-hander. It's a two-hander. Yeah.
Okay, and the actors that you've cast, have you worked with them before, or are they new to you?
I have worked with Rainey before, who's the male actor in the show. He was in my production of Him a few seasons ago here at Shakespeare and Company. Michelle Mountain, I've never worked with before. But what's nice about Michelle is Michelle and Carrie Krim, the playwright, are long-term friends. They've known each other since the late 90s. So, I'm sure there's a lot of Michelle as a person infused in the character of Anna in the play because she knows Carrie so well.
And at which theater at Shakespeare and Company will it be on?
We're going to be in the Playhouse. We're in the TPP. We're in the Packer Playhouse. Yeah.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
What kind of a run do you have? How long will the show be there?
We will open for previews on July 25th, and the actual opening is July 28th. And the show runs through, I think it's August 25th. It's that final Sunday in August before the Labor Day weekend.
That's great. We should just interject here for information on this play and everything else that's at Shakespeare and Company this summer and going into the fall, because the theater seasons now are extended, and Shakespeare and Company will have a holiday show as well. It's all at their website, shakespeare.org. I don't know how they got that website, but what an easy website to remember.
That's for sure. Yeah.
So in how many plays do you get to direct over the course of a year?
I have now sort of kind of dialed back the directing and freelance. I've been teaching. I'm the director in residence at Emerson College in Boston. So I have a full teaching schedule in the fall and in the spring. So that takes up most of my time. It's a little hard to kind of go out of town for a month and do a show when you have a schedule like that. So what's been nice over the last few years is that, my summers are free, and that's when I look for a show to do. And I kind of like it like that. It's a little tough living out of a suitcase when you're on the road as a freelancer.
And you come back to Shakespeare and Company year after year after year. What is it about the Berkshires in Western Massachusetts that you like the most?
Well, that's a really great question. You're probably not aware. I mean, most recently I moved to Cambridge, just outside of Boston, because with my teaching. But for the last 36 years prior to that, I just lived across the border in Canaan, New York. And so I've known the Berkshires for quite a lot of time. And what brought me up here initially was cycling. I'm an avid cyclist, and at one point in my life, I was an ultra marathoner. So I've ridden all over the world, in Scandinavia and Europe, on these multi-day rallies and stuff like that. So I discovered the Berkshires because I needed somewhere to train. And that's how I found out about this place.
As you've been up here over the years, have you noticed how it's changed? And maybe some of it's the pandemic, but a lot more New York, Boston, and LA-based creatives have moved here and live here full time, which means that there are a lot more opportunities for people in the arts to thrive here in Western Mass.
Oh yeah, that is a good thing. I mean, I lived in East Chatham, so there's the Columbia County Film Columbia, which is the big film festival in Chatham every year. It would be so interesting that every year they would have it, and I was with them the very first year they gave it. And suddenly you realize it has become now Little Hollywood, every October when people come in from LA, come in from all over the world. And it still has the distinction of that Saturday night sneak preview being the world premiere of some movie in North America. No, it's played nowhere else until then. So yeah, I think the area has been discovered for a variety of reasons, and even before the pandemic, but the pandemic for sure brought more people to the area, and so it's grown,
And the other thing is, it used to be the Berkshire's art scene started around Memorial Day, kind of really got into full swing by July 4th, and everybody packed up on Labor Day. And now it's year-round.
Yeah. Oh, no, I mean, there's stuff always going on because, again, I think now you've got an audience, year-round. I mean, before I think the audiences weren't year-round, but now, because as you put it, people are living here. They're just not coming here for the summer. They decided to leave wherever they were and make this their residence. And because of that, people want things to do, places to go. Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break to acknowledge the underwriters that make Artsbeat possible. We're talking with Regge Life, who's a director at Shakespeare and Company, Shakespeare.org. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach. Don't go away.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
Underwriting support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Greater Westfield Chamber of Commerce, the voice of business for the Greater Westfield communities. Informing, educating, advocating, the Chamber provides opportunities for members to make meaningful connections on local, regional, and state levels. For more information on the Chamber's many events, workshops, and programs, as well as the benefits of membership, visit westfieldbiz.org. The Chamber focuses on the most important economy, yours.
Join me, Tina Gorman, each week from 6 to 8 a.m. for Wake Up Wednesday, when my guests and I discuss health, wellness, and lifestyle reimagined.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 at 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to Artsbeat, everyone. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach. If you've missed a part of today's program, or you want to watch it again or share it with friends, it's archived on YouTube under WSKB Community Radio. We're talking with Regge Life, who is a director at Shakespeare and Company. A brand new play is going to have its world premiere under his hands. How many scripts do you juggle at any given time? I mean, you've known this playwright for a long time and seen the play undergo various incarnations before it gets this production. But are there other playwrights that you work with and you're seeing scripts at various points?
Yeah, and there's still some playwrights that I've worked with in New York City who are still writing and putting their work out. So, every once in a while, I'll get sent a new script and I'll give it a read and then share some comments and some notes about it. Though, again, like I said, I don't work in New York City as much as I used to in the past. But, I'm always looking for a great new play. But again, that's become sort of the challenge nowadays because of budgeting and stuff like that. That you get a play it's a nice play, but there's 6 people in it, and then you say to yourself, "Oh my goodness, who can I pitch this to?" Because you already know what the budget's going to be, and certain theaters are just not even going to be able to look at it because of that. And so that's become a real challenge now for us as directors. But I think even more so for writers who they've got to turn their creativity again into almost 2- and 3-handers because that's the stuff that gets produced now, just simply because of the economics of the whole thing.
Yeah, and it seems that every play that's being produced right now is 2 or 3 characters on one set.
Yeah. It's called, the show business. And I always tell people which word has the most letters in it, and it's hard, it's tough. And, everything gets more costly, with COVID became more considerations with the actors and for all of us. And so there are added costs that always end up happening. And with that, it means maybe one less character in the play now because we got to pay for this.
And since you're teaching directing with young directors who are idealistically looking at their careers on Broadway or the regional theater scene, it's got to be a hard reality as you're getting them ready to go out in the world, so to speak, that not everything is a large cast show.
Yeah. And then also getting people to think about, scaffolding with this career now, and that maybe, you want to go straight to New York or you want to go straight somewhere else and start working in the business. But, oftentimes it's better to think about a smaller market where you might have more access to venues to do your work. You can actually develop, as I have with Carrie, a relationship with a playwright, so that as the play develops, you're helping to make it develop. And when it finally gets probably a chance to be produced, you'll be the director. And I find that sometimes becomes the more of the challenge, is that you want young directors to understand that the business is in a lot of places now, and sometimes it's better to pick another place to start as opposed to just running immediately to New York City and diving into the pond, So that's what I find, but for the most part, I think the good news is that directors and writers are finding each other, I think, now more than ever, simply because of the fact that everybody is finding that we need to workshop these things before you take them on to production. So playwrights groups are happening much more. They're finding directors are finding playwrights groups. So I like the idea of the collaboration that's going on now.
Yeah, you said that you and this playwright that you're working with now have had a long relationship of collaboration. How did the two of you meet?
We met really through Morning After Grace, that the play that was done here at Shakespeare and Company. I mean, I didn't know Carrie or her work before that. I had just finished directing God of Carnage here, and they were looking at the next season. And Alan, showed me the script, and I read it and liked it, and that's how that happened. And again, Carrie, who had done Morning After Grace at some other theaters and liked the productions, she particularly liked my production of it here. And so that's where our kind of communion took place and stuff. Yeah. But it's been great. She's a wonderful writer and she's a wonderful person.
Do you have projects that you're working on now after this play opens?
I have a film project. I also direct film. So I have a film project that's in development right now. That will probably be my next film project. Theater-wise, I'm not sure. I do some scouting usually once a year to England and some of the smaller theaters there to look at pieces that, are not in the West End. And I'm planning a trip sometime this fall for that, just to see if there's something over there that hasn't had an American premiere yet that I can bring over here. That's how I did productions here of Hang by and Him, which were both done in the UK previously and had not been performed here. And we were one of the first theaters to do it here in the States.
I know that in England, it's a different climate for producing plays than it is in the U.S. Do they nurture their new works the way we do?
Well, I think there's much more support there, which is why you see much more activity. I mean, there's actual money for the arts, and then people realize that the arts is a vital part of life. Whereas here, we're constantly making that argument, and I don't know why we have to, but we do. But that's, I think, the big difference is that you have support there. You have institutional support, governmental support. You just have overall support. They realize this is something we have to keep. And also, part of that is prices. I mean, you can go to the West End, which is their Broadway, and you can see a show for $25, $30. I mean, and you're not sitting in a nosebleed seat. You're sitting, fairly close to the action. And that makes it open to everybody. It's a wonderful thing going there and seeing theater and sitting next to kids in the audience and young people and old people because it's affordable, So I think that's the big difference.
And I think it's supported. I mean, the other day there was in the New York Times, the state of Florida, the governor vetoed all arts funding throughout the state. That would not happen in England or France or Canada. It's kind of indigenous to the U.S. where the support of the arts is not strong.
Yeah. It's it's sad, but again we've made everything a transaction in this country. You know what I'm saying? It's sort of like, what's the ROI? What's the return on investment? And we don't seem to feel that investing in creativity, investing in inspiration, investing in positive messages about life, is not needed, and it's sad because you can see what it does. It means that there's less, people don't take chances. That's why you see so many revivals on Broadway and everywhere else, because no one wants to take a chance on a new work, and so let's do so-and-so again. We know that's a crowd
or
please.
let's do it with a television star that everybody knows whether they're a good actor or not.
Right. I mean, how can we try to make it as bulletproof as possible? Because again, it's about a transaction. It's about a return on investment, and not something really. Even when you grab these shows and revive them, go back to that original production of that show. They didn't do it for return on investment back then. They did it because somebody believed in the material, and was a supporter for that material and got it on board.
Well, Regge, thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All good luck with this production. You can learn more about it by going to Shakespeare.org. We're going to take a break to acknowledge our underwriters, and we'll be back with more Artsbeat. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach. Don't go away.
Underwriting for community radio is provided by the YMCA of Greater Westfield. Every day, the YMCA strengthens the community through programs and services focused on youth development, healthy living, and social responsibility. For all the Y's many programs and services, visit us on the web at www.westfieldymca.org. The YMCA, 67 Court Street in downtown Westfield. We're more than a gym. We're a cause. Underwriting for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Westfield, serving the youth of the Whip City and surrounding communities since 1969. For more information on the Great Futures Club for ages 3 to 5, happening weekdays, and the Club Teen Center for ages 11 and older, weekdays from 6:30 till 8 p.m., go online at bcgwestfield.org. or visit the club at 28 West Silver Street. The Boys and Girls Club of Greater Westfield. Great futures start here.
Listen to me, Michael Buster McMahon, Mondays 8 to 10 a.m. to learn the stories behind your favorite songs. Or don't. I'm not the boss of you.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to Artsbeat, everyone. I'm Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. If you've missed a part of today's program, or you want to watch it again or share it with friends, you'll find it archived on YouTube under WSKB Community Radio. With us now from Berkshire Theater Group is Nick Paleologos, and there's so much going on at Berkshire Theater Group at the Colonial and at the Unicorn Theater in Stockbridge. And up and coming is a Rodgers and Hammerstein musical that a lot of you've never heard about. It's called Pipe Dream. Good morning, Nick.
Hello, Mark. How are you? Kate McGuire sends her love.
Well, you give her my love right back. The other night, I went to Goodspeed Musicals to review South Pacific, and it's the first time I've seen a Rodgers and Hammerstein for a while, and that's one of the best known. And Pipe Dream is really unknown to most people, but it came out after South Pacific and before The Sound of Music, and kind of slid off the radar rather quickly. But it was rediscovered maybe 10 or 11 years ago in New York. It has a really fantastic score.
Well, it's an interesting story in terms of Berkshire Theater Group and the aforementioned Kate McGuire. We had a trustee named Jim Giddens, and Jim has been a Broadway investor all the way back to Stephen Sondheim. I think he's one of the 7 people who saw Merrily in its original production. He was one of their investors. And probably for the better part of the last 25 or 30 years, long before I got here, Jim has been saying to Kate, we've got to do Pipe Dream. We've got to do Pipe Dream, raving about, of course, the music and the fact that it's this little known Rodgers and Hammerstein gem. And so Kate has been, trying to get the rights, but apparently there was a lot of tension and contention between the Rodgers and Hammerstein estate and the Steinbeck estate, where they were just simply not releasing the rights for productions like ours. And then COVID hit, and Jim Giddens had made his annual request, last year or the year before. And so Kate dutifully went, and this time around, they said yes. So this production is a whole new take on the show, which, anytime you start talking about the pitch being, well, Rodgers and Hammerstein meets John Steinbeck, right away you've got my attention. But I, like you, and like many people, had never heard of it. Interestingly, though, it hasn't affected advance sale. Apparently, there's a lot of interest in seeing this show. It has been really selling well, and it just began rehearsals yesterday. Yesterday was the first day of rehearsals. So it's an interesting time here because, you just mentioned that Abe Lincoln in Illinois is down in Stockbridge at the Unicorn. Young Frankenstein is killing here at the Colonial. And then simultaneously, Pipe Dream is in rehearsal. So it's crazy around here.
Yeah. And the thing about Pipe Dream that I found interesting was Encores did it in New York in a concert version, maybe a dozen years ago, with Leslie Uggams. And she was cast in a part, I guess in the original Broadway production, an opera star had been cast in that role. And the reviews for it were incredible, and they made a recording. The music is as good as any of the other Rodgers and Hammerstein classics. You just never heard it. It lasted a very short run in New York. And I don't think it could have been as successful as King and I or South Pacific because the expectation was so huge
Yes.
on Rodgers and Hammerstein.
Yeah. Well, I think, people coming in right now are basically responding, I think, to the name, to the Rodgers and Hammerstein name. And there's a sense of curiosity. As you say, the Encore reboot was short-lived, although there was a recording that came out of it. But it did engender, kind of fresh interest in this material, especially the music. So we're very excited to see what our artistic team, does with it. And it's coming on the heels of a season that has been remarkably robust from our perspective. We are gratified immensely by the audiences that have shown up for two very different other pieces that are going to precede Pipe Dream. I mean, when you think of Abe Lincoln, which is still running through mid-July, you're talking about a play from a previous century, old school, 3 acts. And of course, while it's not really a political play, it speaks in a really interesting way to our times while hearkening back to what we would consider a more innocent time. But it's selling out at the Unicorn Theater in Stockbridge. And then Mel Brooks's Young Frankenstein up here. Again, Kate put together a sort of an interesting season, and who knew? I mean, Young Frankenstein had a run on Broadway. I wouldn't call it a, huge success. It probably ran for maybe, less than a year.
Yeah, it would have been very difficult when it ran. I saw it. I found it was fun. I haven't seen the Berkshire Theater production, but I saw the Broadway production. It was fun, but it followed on the heels of the producers. That was a juggernaut of winning every award. There was no way that Young Frankenstein could be seen on its own terms.
Well, it's interesting. I never saw the Broadway production. It kind of came and went, and I missed it. So my only familiarity, of course, is with the movie, which I loved. And Jerry McIntyre has done an amazing job with it in this production. Opening night, Saturday night. I mean, the audience is up on their feet after putting on the Ritz, which is in the middle of the show. But it stops the show, as does My Boyfriend stops the show. I'd forgotten, but this is a wonderful, spirited cast, and the audiences are going out happy and buzzing, and maybe part of what accounts for the response for the show this time around, in addition to being not that close to the producers, is that people are just longing, aching for something to laugh at.
Exactly. In this time and climate, I would sit through any Mel Brooks.
Well, we can't wait to have you over here. I missed you Saturday night, but I heard you were a little under the weather, but you're welcome.
I was a little under the weather. It's been a long climb for me back to health this last year, but I'm hoping.
Well, you look terrific. My screen, God love you.
It's the magic of radio and TV. What can I say? It's something I very much want to see, and I'm just thrilled that you opened it on Mel Brooks' 98th birthday.
Isn't it amazing? And he's still going strong. I was, because this is my life now, Mark. I'm on YouTube looking at old footage, and there was this wonderful clip of Mel Brooks doing a TV show with Anne Bancroft, and doing a Sweet Georgia Brown in Polish. She's sitting in the audience, and he says, "Come up here, honey, come up here." And immediately she's very reluctant. She doesn't know. Don't worry, this is TV. They all got in here for free. And as soon as the orchestra struck it up, the two of them went into a routine that I'm sure they've done a million times at parties. Don't you wish you could be at a party with Mel Brooks?
Oh, both of them were. You know, I love his work. I mean, it is very well defined, but I hope that if he still has it in him, Blazing Saddles would make one great musical.
Oh, my God. I was just watching a documentary about Gene Wilder, a really touching and wonderful documentary. And, you know, he talked about, well, Mel Brooks featured prominently, obviously, in it. But he talked about Blazing Saddles and how he was cast in that role, and the special relationship that he had throughout his career with Young Frankenstein and Mel Brooks. It was Gene Wilder who kind of pitched the idea of Young Frankenstein to Mel Brooks, who eventually, you know, decided to do it. And Wilder tells the story, or maybe it was Mel Brooks telling the story about the Puttin' on the Ritz number and how Brooks was resistant to doing it. He kept saying, no, we want to stick as closely to the original movie as possible, and I don't really see how this advances the thing. And Gene Wilder fought to have the Putting on the Ritz number in, and Brooks eventually relented, mostly because of how much Gene Wilder believed in it. So Mel Brooks was very generous to Gene Wilder for what ended up being the iconic number in the movie and, of course, in the show.
So while we're talking about All Good Things Berkshire Theater Group, you should go to their website, berkshiretheatergroup.org, get tickets to everything and see what else is coming, because it's not a summer theater anymore.
No.
After Young Frankenstein and after Pipe Dream, Eric Hill will be directing a show at the Unicorn in the fall.
Yes. Eric is going to be doing this year The Weir. We're really looking forward to that. And again this year, following up, renewing an old tradition and following The Weir, we're going to be doing our holiday production of A Christmas Carol, also at the Unicorn in December. So it's going to be a busy fall. We're actually doing a joint event with Barrington Stage, and this is a first. Both theaters kind of joining hands and doing a fundraiser at the end of July. I'm sorry, at the end of August 29th, where Darlene Love and Natasha Bedingfield are going to be playing the Colonial Theater to benefit both theaters. So that's an interesting event, and I think you're going to see more of those kinds of collaborations going forward. It's just become a necessity, but it's also a good thing.
Yeah, and the thing is, when you think about it, you may be competing for ticket sales, but you anchoring Pittsfield on the south part of town and Barrington on the north part of town, you guys together have put Pittsfield back on the map.
Well, thank you for saying that. You know, I have emailed all of my friends because last week or the week before, Forbes magazine picked their 10 best places in America to retire to, and Pittsfield, Massachusetts was one of them, not just for being in the Berkshires and affordability, but for exactly what you just said, Mark, because the one thing we have that lots of other great places don't is the amazing cultural opportunities. And in this case, you know, Barrington Stage and Berkshire Theater Group, you know, anchoring both ends of North Street.
And in theater now, it used to be things kind of boarded up and when the fall foliage season hit and would come back at Memorial Day. But now you guys are doing stuff virtually year round.
Well, that is true. You know, ever since Kate acquired the Colonial Theater in Pittsfield for Berkshire Theater Festival, and the two merged about a decade ago, our programming has expanded all year round. So when, for example, we're finished producing in Stockbridge for what used to be called the Berkshire Theater Festival season, we're continually presenting and producing work up here at the Colonial. So maybe there's a week or two in January where we all take a breath after, you know, the previous season, but then we're back at it, and we're presenting comedy and music tribute bands, and we have on-stage parties. We had a Taylor Swift on-stage party recently. So the theater is being used perpetually in new and imaginative ways.
There is upcoming on your calendar a festival of new Jewish plays. Is that something that you are producing, or is it a rental?
No, we're co-producing it with the Jewish Play Festival in New York, and you're right. It's going to be here for I think a long weekend, like 4 days, 4 or 5 days, and it will showcase new and emerging Jewish playwrights, and it's our first actually co-production with this group. So it'll be interesting to see the work that comes out of that, and we're hoping it's the beginning of a longer-term relationship.
That's terrific. One of the things I read not too long ago is that the Colonial now has solar panels that are going to heat the theater year round.
Thank you. Yes. Well, that's been my little pet project, I mean, I just, believe me, if you were staring at our electric bill every year, it would make you choke. Thanks, I have to say, to two things. The Inflation Reduction Act. I know, I don't want to get political, but that Inflation Reduction Act is providing almost half the money to pay for these solar panels, and the other half is coming from a special grant from the Mass Cultural Council's Cultural Facilities Fund, without which we couldn't do it. But the state and federal government are paying almost 90% of the cost of installing these solar panels on top of the Colonial Theater warehouse in our administrative offices. And almost immediately when they get turned on, which fingers crossed will be after utility approvals in the next month or so, we will be saving on our operating budget $25,000 or $30,000 a year, which for us is huge, because as you know, Mark, these last couple of years post-COVID have been brutal for regional theaters across the country, and anybody who follows the New York Times or is interested in theater at all, it's been a one closing after another, like dominoes across the country. And so just being able to keep our heads above water in the post-COVID environment has been difficult, and we've had to think about how can we save money going forward. And in this case, it's a twofer. We save money, make ourselves more sustainable, and we make a major contribution to lowering the carbon footprint here in the city of Pittsfield. So it's a win-win.
It is, and Berkshire Theater Group and Barrington Stage never shut down during the pandemic, thanks to some great funding that came through, and so many other theaters did.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because the entrepreneur Phil Gross, who made those two big contributions to us because we kept going. He's also the visionary behind this joint fundraising effort between Barrington and Berkshire Theater Group. So Phil and his wife Liz and their family, Alan and Mary Chris Bassman, are actually sponsoring the Darlene Love and Natasha Bedingfield concert for the benefit of both theaters.
I know that Young Frankenstein is a co-production between Berkshire Theater Group and two other theater companies. That's sort of new for Berkshire Theater Group.
Well, we've done variations on it, one-offs here and there, but you're right. This is the first time we've ever done kind of a co-production with three theaters, Bay Street Theater and Jiva Theater Company. And again, just to go back to the solar panels, you will see more and more of this, because in order for us to do a production on the scale of Young Frankenstein and the quality that that show is delivering to audiences every night, the cost of it is beyond our reach if we were just doing it on our own. So in this instance, the three theaters come together, we share the cost of mounting the show, and then each theater gets the benefit of the box office at their theater. So we pay a third of what we normally would pay to produce the show, but we get 100% of our own box office. And that's a model. Well, we'll see how it works. Right now, we're very happy with it, and we'll see. We're the first theater, first leg of the tour. Bay Street is up next, and then Jiva is third. And then at the end of the year, we'll kind of assess it. But just looking at it in this mid-course, position, I think you'll be seeing a lot more of it.
I think so. And economically, it makes a lot of sense. Plus, you wouldn't be able to do it on your own.
No.
It would be too big.
Yeah, I mean, those days, unfortunately, are gone. The business model doesn't work. We used to have, in what I like to call the old days, hundreds of kids that would volunteer and work for no money, live here for 10 weeks in a barracks situation. Those days are over, and the costs of everything that we do have increased. And we're still trying to serve our audiences. So we have a mission to try and get our theater productions to the widest possible and the most diverse audiences. So just here in the Berkshires, what we present up here all year round to our Pittsfield audience those prices have to be lower than what we're charging, for example, for our Berkshire Theater Festival productions and even things like Young Frankenstein to that New York transplant audience, mostly from southern Berkshire County, who can afford to pay $85 a ticket, $95 a ticket. But it's a far cry from $400 a ticket or $500, which they would pay to see the same people in the same quality production in New York City.
Yeah, and by the same token, you are employing people year round. Right. And I mean, the actors that are in this it's not just a quick 3-week run in Pittsfield. It goes over several months. So it's got to be attractive to them as well.
Yeah, mostly it is, because there are fewer and fewer opportunities in New York. And even when you get one, there's no guarantee that it's going to continue to run. And there's always the risk that an actor takes to make a commitment beyond the normal 3-week rehearsal, 3-week production that performing at Barrington or Berkshire Theater would require of them. And a lot of them worry, oh, gee, if I make a commitment where I have to go Berkshire Theater, then to Bay Street, and then to Jiva, I might miss an opportunity in New York. But that concern is now taking a back seat to the guaranteed opportunity that this provides. And we all, if somebody gets a Broadway shot in the middle of their run, we have understudies, we'll adjust to it.
Yeah, I mean, I interviewed somebody from Goodspeed back maybe in the spring that was involved in The Mystery of Edwin Drood. And it's a 4-week rehearsal run and a 14-week run. And they said, look, the train goes to New York. I can go in on my day off, but I want that guarantee of work for several months. And it's fine.
Yeah, and one of the things that we're actually trying to pitch to actors as we try to wrestle with the artist housing challenge up here, and we're saying this to policymakers as well, if we build some additional artist housing in a central Berkshire place like Pittsfield, and you can live here as an artist for $1,000 a month less than what it cost you to live in New York, why would you not live here in an artist community in the Berkshires? And then when you got your gig in New York, you could go rent a place down there for as long as you needed it, but live full-time here instead of the other way around. And we really think that, if we can get some of these projects off the ground to create some affordable artist housing up here, again, it could be a win-win, a win for the city of Pittsfield, getting some new, young, creative blood on the street, and a win for the artists who would be saving money in the long run and still be able to do what they normally do. I mean, most of these people, actors and designers who aren't working on Broadway at any given moment, are working in Los Angeles at regional theater, or Florida in regional theater, or in the Berkshires at regional theater. So their base of operations could really be anywhere. And if it's here, you're close to New York, as you said, Mark. If you had an audition, you could just drive down in 2 hours.
Yeah, I mean, it's 2.5 hours to New York, 2 hours to Boston, and we have 2 airports. So you could work in LA and live here.
Exactly. And I think that's what we're shooting for longer term. I mean, for those people who are thinking about the revitalization of Pittsfield and the future of the Berkshires, trying to develop audiences who are younger than me, that will be essential. And all of the new employers, General Dynamics and other employers who are locating here, when they're trying to attract young people, the first question is, what is there to do? And we have a pretty good answer to that question.
There's plenty to do. And what I find, even where I am in Springfield and Westfield, we have filmmakers that are moving here and composers and designers, and they can have a great quality of life, and there's enough local work to keep some of them busy.
Yeah, I think that's increasingly the case. I am the father of 3 millennials, and it was not this way for me coming up, but all of them in their respective jobs are able to work remotely. I mean, it would make sense to me if one of the 3 were, or 2, but all 3 of them, one is a podcast producer, the other one is working for an association of advertising agencies in New York, whose headquarters is in Midtown, and I don't think she's been inside the main office in a year and a half. So I mean, it's just it's a new world. It's a new world, and that's good news for places like where you are and where we are, because you can afford to buy a house here. You can live in a beautiful community that has lakes and hiking and skiing and culture and still get a paycheck.
And I mean, for me, I used to have to run into New York once a week to meet with clients. And now I don't think I haven't been in New York in a couple of years. You can do everything with Zoom, and I can leave and I can walk outside in the woods.
There's no substitute for that.
No substitute.
Clearing the head.
And when I look at what is available for me on a weekend or during the week, if I want to go out and catch a play or a musical, it's not, well, will we find something to do, but how much can you do? Because there's at least 3-4 events a night here.
And that's the same. That's the same here. I mean, one of the things in terms of the business model that we're always, reckoning with or trying to tweak is so much effort goes into putting on a play, whether it's Pipe Dream, Young Frankenstein, Abe Lincoln, whatever. And then it plays for 3 weeks, and that's it. If it's a raging hit, it's over. Or if we can't give tickets away, it's over. And one of the things that, that we always look at is, maybe we should do fewer things and let them run longer. And that way, if you're driving up and down Route 7 here and you see a billboard that says, "Oh, Young Frankenstein," and you put it in your head, I've got to see that. And then by the time you get around to it, it's gone.
Yeah.
And as you say, the Berkshires, there's no shortage of competition. You've got Jacob's Pillow, you've got Williamstown, Shakespeare and Company, Barrington, us, and that's just the performing arts. That's before you get to the Clark and the, Rockwell Museum.
Or the music scene. I mean, people think, well, it's just Tanglewood, but it's really not. There's so many music series going on. We are blessed.
We really are.
Well, Nick, thanks for chatting with us this morning. You're hearing all these great things about Berkshire Theater Group. Go to their website, berkshiretheatergroup.org. Get some tickets to some things.
Thanks, Mark. It's great to
Nick,
see you.
Nick, so good to see you.
And we'll see you in person soon, I hope.
You certainly will. And this wraps up another edition of Artsbeat. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach. We'll see you next week.
Did you notice what a beautiful day it is today?
Yeah, I noticed.
Ain't it funny about days? What a jerk of a day was Wednesday. By the time I got to sleep, all the interest in life that I had left, I'd have sold you awful cheap. But I opened my eyes this morning, and I knew by every sign that whatever I wanted to do today would be sure to turn out fine. When the sun flew in my window and crept in bed with me, I knew that this would be a sweet Thursday. When the wind got confidential and whispered through a tree, I knew that this would be a sweet Thursday. My head was up in the clouds, my heart was flapping its wings. I looked at the sky and wanted to try to do impossible things. What a day it's been for dreaming, my dreams have all come true. And if one I kept for you turns out to be right, it's gonna be a sweet Thursday night for me. It's gonna be a sweet Thursday night. A good kind of confident feeling has followed me all day long. My luck was in, I played to win, I knew I couldn't go wrong. A bright red geranium told me today was my day for fun. A katydid said, take it, kid, you better take it and run. Some shirts hanging up on a clothesline kept waving their tails my way. Hiya, fauna, hiya, babe. Ain't this a doll of a day? Hi, boys. Ain't this a doll of a day? When the sun flew in my window and crept in bed with me, I knew that this would be a sweet Thursday. When the wind got confidential and whispered through a tree, I knew that this would be a sweet Thursday. My head was up in the clouds, my heart was flapping its wings. I looked at the sky and wanted to try to do impossible things. What a day it's been for dreaming, my dreams have all come true. And if one for Doc and Sue turns out to be right,